For most of us, our homes are the biggest investment we will ever make. And helping homeowners maximize the beauty and the functionality of those spaces is what I do best. No matter your budget or the size of the room or the home that you're renovating, I want to inspire you with design ideas and share insider tips and tricks on how to maximize the wow factor of your remodel while minimizing that budget. But in order to create your dream space, sometimes you've got to take it down to the studs. I want to take you inside my most recent remodel. The goal of this project was to reclaim this space, to uncover the natural beauty of the original home, and yet add a totally modern twist to all aspects of the space. This old house is a 1923 bungalow in the city. It's in a great neighborhood, but it has been remuddled through the years. It especially got stuck in the 1960s. Bizarre windows, kitchen nightmare, wall paneling everywhere, and a vinyl-covered bathroom straight out of a Hitchcock movie. But luckily, this little bungalow screaming for help didn't have to yell that loud, because right next door lived the man who could bring it back to life.
Well, Earl was my next door neighbor, my buddy. He was a really, really kind man. He had lived in the house for 45 years. So I knew the house really well. So when it came time for his estate to settle, I took the opportunity to purchase the house. Most of my adult life made my living as a professional actor, mostly doing theater, a little bit of film, some TV, but mostly live theater. And I found that in doing live theater, one of the things that happens is you never get to see your own work. You never get to see the things you've made because you actually are in them, you do them. So I got really interested in working on my own houses. So I could build something, stand back and see it, touch it, use it, and live in it. And I found that to be really, really satisfying outlet. And after I had renovated a number of my own homes, I started hiring myself out to people or helping friends and family with projects around their house. Actually did a few projects with Amy. We worked together on a cabin that I owned in Wisconsin. We worked together on her house that she had purchased and redid a kitchen. So we've done some work together. I had never taken on a whole house project before. So this was a unique thing for me to come at Earl's house knowing that I had a finite amount of time I needed to get this done in. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. This house had 2 bedrooms, 2 kitchens, and 1 bathroom. It was the weirdest little house.
It was covered in weird linoleum, weird wallpaper, weird wall paneling, awful carpeting. Windows had been replaced, classic ones had been taken out, and bizarre 1960s windows had been put in that didn't match the architecture of the house at all.
You walked up to the house, the front door, there was aluminum siding on the outside that was white with some windows that had been replaced, 2 different kinds of windows on either side, not in keeping with the style of the house at all, with black aluminum shutters on the side. It wasn't a lot to look at.
One of the worst crimes in this house was the way that it had been reconfigured at some point. It was almost as if someone was trying to make a duplex out of this railroad bungalow. And so they'd separated the space. There were 2 kitchens in this tiny, 850 square foot home.
You would have a choice once you hit that front entryway. You could either go straight ahead to a bedroom, or you could take a left and go into the living room. And when I looked at the old plans, it turns out that that whole front entryway had never even existed in the original house. That was an addition that was put on in 1952 or something like that. So it makes sense that it didn't make sense.
One of the weirdest parts about the exterior of this house was that there was a secondary back door that was added. So there was a poured concrete step leading into a bizarre kitchen, and then there was a lower door leading into a terrible dark tunnel of a mudroom entryway.
I knew that I wanted something that was going to feel like a restoration. And with Amy's help, I found a way to see something that was more than a restoration. It was a rebirth of a house. There was a lot to do to restore that to its original craftsman beauty.
One of my favorite parts of design is really considering not what you want each of the elements to look like, but what kind of experience do you want to have in your home? And what kind of story do you want to tell to those people coming into your space?
So when it came time to actually choose the materials and design the house, it was really helpful to have Amy on board to talk about the palette, to help with the materials, to help with the general focus of what the house was going to be, the thesis of the house.
When you take the time to design with a cohesive vision in mind, meaning you can sit down in a room with all the elements of your palette, from your flooring to your paint to all of your tiles to the different woodworks that you have existing or that you're adding, you can see what you're going to end up with. And this story that you're telling, these colors, these textures, all of them should really flow together. When you do that correctly, you will end up with a stunning finished product.
It was a lot of fun and sometimes a little bit scary, because I remember going into the tile shop and they came out with all of this stuff and I was like, wait a minute, how is that possibly gonna work? But those are all the materials we ended up using, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it melds everything together. I knew that if I was going to make this project work, I needed to have a good plan, I needed to have a good design, and I didn't have an architect, and I'm not an architect, but I knew the house well enough, and I trusted myself and my instincts, and I trusted Amy, you know, of course, implicitly, I think that that the plan we came up with, I knew it was going to work, but I needed to draw the plans up and put together a proposal.
I love uncovering the beautiful details that have been hidden, but that we're about to make even more beautiful. One of my favorite things that we found when doing the demolition was the old brick chimney that was running right up through the kitchen, and of course was covered in drywall, as most people do. But as soon as I uncovered it, I was like, that has to be part of the kitchen. That element, that texture has to be part of the space. One of the most painful parts of this space that I just couldn't wait to dig into was in the back of the house, there was a second back door added. So there were literally two back doors next to each other on different levels. The most horrifying experience walking into the house and feeling like you're in a bit of a dungeon. It's a small house already, so we really knew that we needed to open up that space.
I expected to have to completely redo those spaces. I didn't know that I would be getting quite as far down to the studs as I did.
My vision for this project was to take a really simple, unassuming, what felt like from the outside, a tiny bungalow, and create something where when you walked in the front door, it was a surprise everywhere you looked, but like a spa surprise. So you're totally chill, but you're walking into an environment that is flooded with light, gorgeous woods, surprise tiles as art pieces. Even the door handles, I wanted to have personality and quality and texture so that you feel like, even though it's a small space, this is a really well-designed space and it feels so rich.
It was a pretty boring and pretty ugly kind of curbside.
When it comes to the exterior of a house remodel, sometimes you're spending all your money on areas on the inside that you might not have a lot to make the outside super pretty, but you don't want to leave it untouched. In this case, the exterior siding was in decent shape, though it wasn't the original siding. The homeowner considered ripping it off, even though it was okay, and uncovering what was underneath, but it kind of turned out to be a can of worms, a lot more expensive than they were hoping to spend. It would have taken a lot of money away from the interior pieces that really added to the value in living in the space, and it was in good shape, so why take it off? So we decided to just paint the exterior, freshen it up, give it a little richer feel, and then add a new door color. One of the easiest ways to add curb appeal to your house is a brightly colored, fun, playful door.
I love the coral colored door. Who would have thought there'd be a coral colored front door? The weirdest and ugliest thing about this house was the back entryway.
And so we wanted just one entryway for the back of the house, and putting it on the higher level worked better for the flow of the space. And then building a simple cedar deck outside gave it some personality.
You walked in the front door and you were hit with just a little teeny square of what I thought was tile. And it wasn't only when I got to the demo that I realized that that's actually a rubber mat that's been pressed to look like tile. So it was good news because it was a lot easier to pull up than it would have been had it been tiled.
The entryway sunroom needed some kind of drama, but I wanted to make it pop without adding too much color. So I went with a large format neutral tile, but it had just enough character that it flowed with the rest of the house and made enough of a statement in the entryway that you knew you were walking into a space that was well thought out.
Well, the living room is the center of the home, and it's a living room, dining room sort of combined space.
In parts of the house, you have all this classic craftsman, beautiful workmanship. Built-in buffet, gorgeous divided light windows, and someone came in and decided carpet was a great idea over the original hardwood floors.
I guess it would be the south wall. All had original woodwork with the windows and the window casing and the built-in buffet. There were piano windows, which I happen to like. They're perfect craftsman details that I think work great in those kinds of homes. And there was some paneling that wouldn't have been my choice on that wall.
In order to restore the classic craftsman charm that had been removed, we got rid of the paneling, replaced the 1960s windows and trim with ones that matched the original architecture, removed the carpet to uncover gorgeous hardwood, and let the sunlight in. Then I layered in a mix of mid-century and modern decor elements, as well as statement light fixtures that work beautifully within an updated bungalow. Finally, the old built-in could shine once again.
The kitchen, which is the main kitchen, was it was adorable, completely unfunctional. There was standalone stoves and a fridge and just an ugly sink that was in a place that didn't make much sense. There was again a window that was not original to the house. It had been replaced. There was paneling everywhere and a Formica wainscoting that really didn't do anything. There was a stairway that took over one corner of the kitchen, probably a good 10 square feet of what was already a very small kitchen. So it was a high priority to claim that corner.
The kitchen had been totally revamped with carpeting, and there were like 3 entryways into the kitchen, and being that the kitchen is a small space, that meant that there were only a couple places that you could put appliances and a countertop, and everything that was thrown in had been contractor grade put in the 60s and 70s, and so we knew that space needed to be gutted and reconfigured completely. The kitchen in this home was originally tiny, and we reconfigured the space, but I didn't want to open it up entirely to the living room because an open floor plan is not what these houses used to have. So I wanted to keep the kitchen feeling like its own story, but yet if you're in the kitchen, being able to see what's happening in the dining room and living room, because we all like living with that open feeling. The cabinetry for this house cost about $13,000 and it was custom made, and it's to die for, and it's worth every dime. And honestly, if you were to have gone in and gotten some ready to assemble cabinets or even stock cabinetry, you wouldn't have gotten anything that filled the space as well. It would never have felt really architecturally designed, and you wouldn't have been able to utilize every square inch. And in a small kitchen, you've got to utilize every inch. This once awkward pass-through became a coffee bar with extra counter space and storage. I chose brushed gold hardware, which plays beautifully against the deep blue cabinets. We found cost savings in these honey-toned butcher block countertops, which were a fraction of the price of a stone or solid surface product. The exposed original brick chimney adds texture and character next to the wood counters and large format tiles. Now, this small but mighty kitchen has become a dramatic, highly functional workspace that feels like a piece of art right in the center of this cozy home.
So another weird feature of this house is you would walk past the kitchen from the front of the house, and there was a den in the back of the house, which was just a dead-end paneled room with the same brainy carpet and dark, and it didn't work.
The back of the house had been remodeled at one point so that there was wall paneling circling the entire inside of what once was a beautiful sunroom space. When we pulled up the old carpeting, there was a stunning hardwood floor. Sometimes it's enough to just uncover and make beautiful again what was there. You don't hardly have to add anything else to a space. And in the back sunroom, this was exactly the case. We took all the old paneling off the wall, took the carpet off the floor and uncovered this beautiful flooring, restained it, painted it neutral, added back in the original woodwork and trim that should have been there in the first place. And all of a sudden you have a space that feels totally organic to the original home.
You walked into this, what felt like a big, long, dark tunnel with a low ceiling.
Transforming that old dark tunnel of an entryway into a one-door, beautiful entry where you're coming into a bright, inviting space, it was magical. The bathroom in the house was a sad sight. It was tough. That bathroom had seen a lot.
Bathroom was, again, very nice probably in 1953. It had pretty much nothing in it that would want to be kept, except the tub. It had a good old solid cast iron enameled tub that was probably original to the house, and I wanted to make sure to keep that, but in terms of pretty much everything else in there, it had to go. It was a complete gut job.
There literally was not one part of that old bathroom that we could keep because everything else had been put in the 70s. It was paneling on the walls. It was just, bizarre lights over the vanity. It was all the stuff that you want to see kind of in the dumpster. I wanted the bathroom on the main level to be super inviting, spa-like, neutral colors, keep it just like a really beautiful creamy palette. So there's some grays in there, the white tiles, and what I wanted to do with the sink vanity is add in some wood. There needs to be wood in every single space. I wanted to do something unique with the vanity, and the homeowner had an old sink top that was really cool. It was from the 1930s. It had so much character. So I designed the base of the vanity. He built it. It looks absolutely adorable. And a $300 to $700 bathroom piece was essentially the cost of the lumber that it took to build it.
Earl's bedroom, it was pretty much a mirror image of the bedroom on the other side. It had a small, shallow closet. To the back side, there was another door that led back to a second kitchen.
The back area of the house that had been totally remodeled, that was a kitchenette and a bedroom, it was just bizarre. It was totally gutted, and I wanted to make that into a master suite. Since these old houses don't ever have great closets, and I wanted this master bedroom to feel just modern and updated, and for someone to like cheer when they walked in the back and go, oh my gosh, there's a closet in here. I created a walk-in closet behind the master headboard. This space in the back corner has 2 windows. It could even be used as, you know, a baby's room for an infant. It's so lovely and bright. But it's the perfect place to make a little master closet. I love design surprises, and this one is one of my favorites. So in the master bedroom, which is already a small space, as you walk back into the master closet, I wanted to add an eyeball light that shone into the closet where you could put a piece of art, so that when you walk in the master bedroom, your eye goes further outside of the room. I didn't want a door on there. I wanted you to feel the expanse of the space.
We knew we wanted to finish the basement. That was for sure, because we needed to be able to list it as a 2-bath, 3-bedroom. When I bought it, it was really just a storage space and a couple of laundry machines that were down there. There was really nothing to it.
I love remodeling basements in old homes. There was something about this space where as soon as I went down in it, I knew exactly what it needed.
So we wanted to make a space that was flexible, but that whoever looked at it could see what they needed to see there.
I didn't want to chop the basement space up because someone else is going to come in and have a vision of how they want to use the space. I think there's a fine line between creating flexible spaces that are great and that leave the next homeowner lots of options. But in this space, I wanted to also really define and make some bold design choices. So I think with any remodel, finding the balance between those 2 things is really important.
We wanted to use as much of the materials that were already there. So there was a chimney that was a part of the original house. We just left it the way it was. The dug fir beam and the posts that were there, we just sanded those down and used them.
Of course, basements always need light. Adding an egress window is going to add value for you. It's also going to allow you to be able to have a legal bedroom as long as the ceiling height is right.
And I wanted to make it really modern, but also in keeping with the history of the house. With Amy's help and her design eye, I think we managed to create a space that was really, really pretty cool.
The basement bathroom is really magical.
The beautiful shower, I mean, that's enough reason for me to want to not have sold the house right there.
The floor tile has so much personality, but it isn't overwhelming, and it's going to be timeless for the space. On the walls, the modern twist on the subway tile works perfectly. It's a little richer than a traditional white subway. It has a creamier look to it, and it has a patina to it. It does exactly what I wanted it to. It makes the space feel that even though this is a basement that was never meant to be lived in, that those tiles could have actually always been there. I wanted the floor in the shower to anchor the space. So when I went to the tile shop to look at my whole entire palette and figure out what I was going to pull, I had initially thought I would go with something that flowed with the walls to make it all feel bigger. But then when I saw this beautiful black hexagonal tile that has a ton of texture and it's not solid black, it's got grays and a little bit of marbling, so subtle, I knew that that would be the perfect element to anchor the shower space and just make it feel strong and defined, and then let that creamy patinaed subway tile all the way up the walls tell a different story, make it feel like a spa. Working with small spaces, sometimes people say you shouldn't add like dark colors or anything really bold, right? You want to keep it feeling open. And I'm a fan of light colors and I'm a fan of neutrals for sure. But when you add big drama and bold choices to just a couple spaces in the house, it's really quite stunning how that one very bold choice that you make can transform even the most neutral parts of the house. The tile for the mudroom floor was a traditional hexagon shape, which you would have found in a lot of these classic craftsman homes, but it was hexagon on steroids. They're huge. But they felt traditional enough to the original style of the home that then I could play with the color and the texture. So doing a hexagon floor tile like this that has the wood rustic look in it made sense. It didn't feel trendy. It actually feels like something that could be timeless just because of the shape of it. In this particular kitchen, I wanted to go really bold, and I knew I wanted to do blue cabinetry to begin with, and I fell in love with this crazy, bold, large format tile. The cool thing about using a large format tile in a small space is that you end up really with an art piece all over the wall. It doesn't look like individual tiles because it's not.
What I learned is that the design choices that we made and that Amy helped steer me towards were unique. They were high design, they were cohesive. There was a thesis and a style to them that elevated the house way beyond what a normal flip would be. When I put it on the market, it sold in less than a week, and it sold for significantly more than my asking price. Amy says that you don't have to design a house that everyone's gonna like. You have to design a house that at least a couple of people are gonna love.
This project was the perfect example of how making bold design choices and using modern elements in a timeless way can create a magical transformation and bring a lackluster home back to life. See you next time on Down to the Studs.